Okay, so today I want to talk about Vite.js, right? And why I'm such a fan of Vite, and I think you should be too. So let's check it out. Okay, so what is Vite.js? Vite.js is a build tool, okay? It is a tool that you can use to quickly build your web applications. Now it's got some descriptions here on the homepage, instant server start. Now, this part is very interesting and it's very cool for dev mode. And that's because it has native ESM support, right? So you write your code in ESM and you can consume your libraries in ESM, and it's going to be instantly super fast to do your dev builds. So every time you make a change, it'll update the app, you refresh the page, and you're good to go. The builds are super, super quick. The most it has to do is if you add new files, it goes through and just adds them to the cache that it has. And you'll see that in the console whenever you do that. But once it's done, I mean, it's super fast. And it's like, seconds, like a second or less to get these builds done in development mode. Then you do a production build. It takes a little bit longer, but it's going to be an optimized production build. And if you notice here in the notes for optimized build, it uses rollup under the hood to handle that. That comes in very handy because you can also use rollup plugins with Vite if you wanted to, right? So what I really like about it here, this part, but they're under rich features, is the fact that it has support for TypeScript and JSX and CSS optimizations all built in. I don't need to add a separate loader for TypeScript or do anything weird with my configuration to get JSX to work or any CSS optimizations I might want to use. It's all just built into the tooling that you use. So let's go and check out the guide. And it's got some ways you can go ahead and scaffold your projects, right? Now, this is a really interesting part here. So if you want to init an application, they've got npm-init, Vite, and you just give it a template that you want. Right now, if I do this without a template, for example, let's just do this here, like so. So I'm going to create my Vite app. Now it's going to walk me through here, and it's going to ask me, what kind of application do you want to use? A vanilla application, meaning no framework at all. Do I want Vue? Yes, it already has Vue support built into it. React or Preact or Lit or Svelte, right? So I'll just go with the vanilla application for now. And at this point, you're also asked, do you want a regular vanilla application or do you want to use TypeScript too? So I'll just go and stick with actually not, let's do TypeScript because this is pretty interesting. All right, so now go into my Vite app, npm install, and I'm ready to go. Let's check this out. Okay, so automatically I get tsconfig. It sets up my tsconfig for me. I don't have to do anything here. It's all built in. If I want to add React or Preact or any other JSX framework to this application after, I can add that into tsconfig so it understands what to do, but I don't need to do it just yet. My index.html is going to have a script tag type module because remember, we're using ESM under the hood. Interesting part, it's pointing to the TypeScript file. This way, Vite is going to know if it should compile TypeScript or JavaScript, right? That's how it handles it. Your output is not going to have a TypeScript file. Yes, it will have JavaScript built code. Now, what does my code look like? So notice I've got this Vite environment in here, right? So it's going to add the Vite client stuff in here. And this is if I want to access meta. So let's take a look at that real quick. Okay, so the import.meta has a URL that's a native ESM feature. This way you can get the current module's URL. This is pretty useful if you want to create like it has an example here to get the image URL to a particular image. So you use import meta URL and you're able to bring it in and define it that way, right? Now, it adds the typings for this. So this import.meta.url will work in TypeScript. Also take note that it doesn't work with server-side rendering down here. Just a small note on the page in case you're interested. Right, so you have a couple different ways to do it. It automatically is going to add this typings file for me that has a reference here, or you can add it to the compiler options of the TS config for your application. Okay, so let's take a look at the main TypeScript file, right? So it's going to import the styles, and it's going to go ahead and create this, grab the app element from the page, and then drop some inner HTML into that. So let's just take a look at what the application looks like real quick. And if we look at the package.json, it has a command called dev that we can use. We can do a build and then do a serve of that build, just to get a preview of that. So let's go and run npm run dev, localhost 3000, and let's see what that's going to look like. Okay, there we go. This is just a very basic hello Vite application, like a hello world, right? Yeah, so don't mind this error I've got for this SWJS. I was actually doing some service worker work earlier on this machine, so that's why the service worker stuff is getting loaded in here. So ignore that. All right, so that's essentially all you need to know to get started using Vite, right? There's not much to it. You just use Vite to create a template of your app, and you don't have to. It's just a very a convenience that they provide, these templates to build your applications, and then you just start writing your code using ESM and modern JavaScript syntax. And in my case, I'm using TypeScript. So, either way works for you. Now, there are some other cool things you can do. So, for example, if you want to have static assets to your application, it does support a static public file. So I can make a public folder in here. And this public folder was where you would put your robots.txt. You can put service workers. So this is what I was testing earlier. So I can create a service worker in here. And let's just go ahead and make a very basic service worker in the public folder. And we're just going to say self.add event listener. And it's going to be for service workers. So it's going to be, let's go ahead and say we want to listen for fetch. And inside the service worker, we're going to grab an event. And just say, console.log event. It's a fetch event, so it's going to have the request. And we just want to know what the URL request is. Now I want to use that service worker somewhere, so typically that would be a script tag somewhere in here. So we just add a script tag here. Actually, no, we're doing the main file. So I've just got some vanilla service worker loading code that I can use here. Okay, so let's run this and let's see what happens. And there we go. We got our service worker logging out all the different requests that are being made, and we're saving it. Well, we're not saving it just yet, but we have it inside the service worker, and we can start doing something with that. So there you go. That's how you can have static files served from your Vite applications. And there's plenty more you can do with ViteJS. Like I said, there's a whole suite of plugins you can use. A lot of them are related to using the frameworks, right? The official plugins they have up here. There's a series of community plugins under Awesome Vite. And then, of course, you can use rollup plugins as well. But you're also going to want to check out the compatibility section to make sure that they're going to work 100%. There's a little bit of differences in some of the plugins that won't completely work all the time. But it's very helpful and something you can take advantage of. So there we go. That's how you can get started using ViteJS. I like it a lot because I think it's incredibly easy to get started using Vite to build your applications, whether you're using regular JavaScript or TypeScript, or you're going to use a framework that uses JSX or something like that. It's an incredibly simple way to get started, and you can just incrementally start adding features that you'll need if your application gets a bit more complicated. Your build pipeline needs a little bit more stuff added to it. Instead of having to start out with a large config, start up simple, add what you need. All right, see you next time. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you very much. Have a great one.